What has been the response to that, though? Like from sponsors, from fans, what kind of response have you gotten from something like that?
I think the most upset person that night after the fight was me. There's been zero response. Actually, the response has been that people agreed with Khabib and thought Khabib should have done it. And but for me personally, all the work that I put into this for the last 20 years of my life, you know, I didn't want to see it go down like that. It was, I was upset about it. I was the only one. The rest of the world could care less.
I guess, why do you think you feel that way? Is it just because you came from this time when you were trying to fight for...
This pay-per-view was one of the top 5 pay-per-views of all time in the history of pay-per-view, not just UFC. So we had more people watching than ever before. We had people from all over the world watching because the digital buys on this fight were bigger than any sporting event ever in the history of digital. So for me, it was just our biggest moment, the most people watching ever, and it's not who we are. It's not how. It's not even who Khabib is. He said it many times after the fight. He went crazy after the fight, and it happens sometimes. This is the fight business. But yeah, I was the most upset guy on the planet after that fight. Nobody else cared.
Both of their coaches have came out and their managers. I think. Well, I don't want to misquote this. So I believe Conor's coach has come out. I believe Habib's manager has maybe come out and said, this was really not that big of a deal. I know it looked like a big deal, but security got it under control right away. Do you see that differently?
It is true. No, I don't see it differently. We had that thing contained in under 40 seconds. I made the decision to not put the belt on him inside the octagon because I didn't think it was safe. I didn't think we'd get a good reaction from the fans. We got everybody out of there okay. No fans were hurt. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was hurt in this thing, and we contained it really fast. But it is a big deal. We're a professional sport. These are professional athletes. We're in the state of Nevada, the fight capital of the world. We're representing T-Mobile, the MGM, and the sport as a whole. It was a big deal. It was a big deal. We contained it, and everything went fine, and it ended up well. Nobody cared but me, but it was a big deal.
And I want to ask you, I can understand why you think it's a big deal. I can understand why you think it was not a good night or not a good look for the sport itself. I got to say, anywhere I go, though, people said, where were you? Like, what did you think of that brawl? It is a talking point in the sports world, let alone the mixed martial arts world. And that lends itself to how likely is a rematch? Because if you got the whole sports world talking about something, then as a fight promoter, I would think that you would want to capitalize on that, right? So what impact is that having on your thinking on what a rematch might be?
Yeah, I haven't even thought about a rematch. Obviously, I know Conor wants a rematch, but we need to do what's right and what's fair. And we'll see how that all plays out. I literally haven't even thought about it yet. We're still working on other fights right now. Tony just got out of a tough fight. Conor's on his whiskey tour, and Khabib's touring the Middle East right now. So everybody's focused on other things. They got other things going on. Haven't even thought about it.
Do you see any similarities, and maybe you haven't talked to him enough to know this, but can you make any comparisons between how Conor is now to how he was after the Nate Diaz loss? Because I know he asked for a rematch in both cases, but it really seemed like with Nate, he became obsessed and didn't want to think about anything other than fighting. And like you mentioned, now he's on this whiskey tour. Is it different? Is it the same? Can you compare it?
I think the difference is that, he started a whiskey company. He's committed to this company, and he committed to this tour, win, lose, or draw. If you look at Conor's future, this whiskey thing's a big part of it. So it's doing really well, and he's got to handle his business. I think that's the difference. I think if Conor had this whiskey business after the Nate Diaz fight, he'd be doing the same exact thing.
Let me, so much of the focus after 229 was about what happened after the fight. What did you think of Conor's performance? Some people thought he gave Habib his toughest fight. Other people thought this guy got dominated by Habib. What did you think of his performance?
Yeah, I think, everybody talked about how wrestling was his weakness. I think if you look at the first round, Conor did a damn good job in that first round of, Khabib was, had him on the ground but couldn't do the damage that Habib usually does when he gets you in that position. Then as Conor started to wear out and get tired, that's when you saw Habib start to do what Habib does.
I'm going to ask you this, and I don't know if you'll even be able to do it, but can you not be a promoter at all? Can you not be president of the UFC? And just as a fight fan, who do you want to see Habib fight next? As a fight fan, who would you want to see?
I mean, as a fight fan, you got to go with Tony. Tony had the belt, tweaked his knee, got stripped. This fight happens. Tony never lost the belt in a fight. Neither did Conor. But Conor got the opportunity to actually fight for the belt. I think Tony deserves the next shot.
I saw that you may have told TMZ several times that you and Habib are good. You're good.
Yeah. Yes. Habib and I are good. We're good. We're very. I mean, Khabib's come out on my social media and said, we're good. Everything is okay. The media is crazy. This is crazy. I mean, literally fake stories pop up every day. And one of them I posted on my Instagram. Mm-hmm. Completely fake, false. None of that was true. Not one word of it was true.
There was a video posted on social media not that long ago where Habib is standing next to your good friend Leonard Ellerbe, and they're talking about a potential fight between Habib and Floyd Mayweather. There was a time where I wouldn't even pay attention to this, but those times are long gone.
Don't pay attention, do it again. First of all, the Mayweather team has not approached us at all. Again, Habib is under contract with the UFC. We haven't talked to anybody from the Mayweather team. Floyd's very good at getting his name back out there when he's ready to and stirring up some noise.
At the beginning of this year, though, you were saying that you two were in contact and that he was expressing some legitimate interest in possibly
fighting Conor.
Floyd.
Yeah.
In a mixed martial arts contest.
Yes.
But when did those talks stop, and why do you think they did?
They stopped shortly after that. What I thought is Floyd was trying to wrestle and trying to train some MMA to see what it was like. I don't know if that's the case, but that was what I thought. Yeah, but we haven't talked to anybody from Team Mayweather, so. Mm-hmm. Floyd's good at getting himself back in the news.
Yeah, he is. UFC 230, main event between Daniel Cormier and Derrick Lewis. Why? Talk about that fight and what you're looking forward to in that fight.
Yeah, obviously, Derrick Lewis is a tough guy, durable, keeps coming no matter what happens, has an unbelievable chin, and has the ability to knock anybody out with one punch. He's very exciting and fun to watch, and what can I say about Daniel Cormier? Daniel Cormier is one of the greatest athletes ever in the history of this sport. He's got 2 belts right now, the heavyweight and light heavyweight titles, and I think it's going to be a fun fight. It's a fun heavyweight fight. Cormier's never lost at heavyweight, and Derrick Lewis is the number 2 ranked heavyweight in the world.
Other than getting him a title shot, obviously, what do you think Derrick Lewis's last performance against Volkov did for his brand, his career?
Turned him into a huge star. His last fight with Volkov turned him into a huge star. Obviously, the most people ever watching an event, one of the top 5 of all time. And, his fighting style, his personality, everything came across. He gained over 600,000 followers on Instagram after that fight. Put him up over 1 million followers, like 1.2 million.
So Daniel Cormier, everyone expected his next heavyweight fight to be Brock Lesnar. Obviously International Fight Week, they got in and shoved each other, all that. So by him taking this fight against Derrick Lewis, how much is he putting that fight in jeopardy? Is he putting that fight in jeopardy?
Listen, Cormier is one of these guys, just like I always talk about McGregor. Cormier is one of these guys. He's willing to put everything on the line. That's what I like so much about Cormier, too, as a fighter. I told Cormier, if you're my champion for the rest of my career, I'm good with it. He's a great guy, well-spoken. Love the way he breaks down fights and does his thing with Rogan. And then as far as fighting, he's lost to one guy in his entire career, John Jones. And why that might drive Cormier crazy. Not a bad stat, because you know how I feel about Jones. I think Jones is probably the best to ever do it. But yeah, I love the fight with Cormier versus Derrick Lewis. It's going to be fun, and you're guaranteed to get your money's worth out of that fight. And those are the type of fights that I love.
What are the chances that Brock Lesnar could be in attendance for that fight? He came to International Fight Week to see who his next opponent might be.
Yep.
Could we see him in New York?
Yeah. Brock Lesnar might be in New York. That's not guaranteed. We haven't talked about it or anything else, but I wouldn't be surprised if he called and said, I'm coming to the fight.
So as far as you know, though, the plan is for him to still fight in the first quarter of next year?
Yeah, I plan on Brock Lesnar fighting soon.
Okay. You know, I know that you have passed off Nate Diaz's responsibilities to someone else in the company, but he was in your co-main event, and Poirier fell off. And it seemed like there was a lot going on potentially behind the scenes between the UFC and Nate Diaz. That's what it seemed like. Can you describe what is the relationship like between the UFC?
There really wasn't a lot going on between us and Nate Diaz. You know, he wanted to fight. We made a fight. We announced the fight. Immediately, he started saying he's not fighting. And, you know, I told you, we had a guy here in the company that was a big Nate Diaz fan and Nick Diaz fan and wanted to work with him. He's not as enthusiastic as he used to be.
Will you be looking to make the Poirier-Diaz fight again? Is that a fight that you would like to keep that together, or?
I'm not interested in making a Diaz fight until Diaz is just absolutely dying to fight. We'll offer him fights. We always offer him fights. We probably offered this kid 50 fights, you know, since he fought Conor. You know, when he's ready to fight, he'll let us know.
One quick question about George St-Pierre. He came out and said that, you know, he said this before, that he's at a place in his career where he only wants to take fights that mean a lot to his legacy. And he believes that really the only fight that meets that criteria now is Habib. So what do you think of that potential fight?
So how does GSP jump over all the guys who've been fighting in that division to face Habib? Because he decides all of a sudden, I want to come out and I want to fight this guy. He doesn't get to do that. If George St-Pierre is serious, come on out. Listen, I'll give you a fight with one of these guys in the top 5. You win, then you'll be in position for a title shot. We don't even know if George St-Pierre can make 155 pounds. You know what I mean? I mean, he looked big at 185. He's a big 170-pounder. Who knows if he can even make 155?
You know, with Canelo signing a deal, and you guys had talked about Zuffa Boxing, is there an update on your potential interest or potential involvement in the sport of boxing?
Yes. I actually had a meeting in LA yesterday. We are continuing to move forward, and we will absolutely, positively be in the boxing business.
Do you have a time frame on that?
Soon. I mean, I just bought the building next door here, and we're building a $12 million facility, which will have our own, basically our own arena. We'll be able to put on fights right here next door and air them live anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I can do MMA fights, I can do boxing, I can do kickboxing, I can do jiu-jitsu, I can do all kinds of different fights and tournaments. We're going to do a lot of things. I think people are, I always say this to you guys all the time. I'm always like, wait till you see what we do next year. Wait till you see what we do next year. And I always tell you about my 5-year plans. Wait till you see what we do in the next 5 years. We're going to continue, like I always say, continue to take it to the next level and continue to blow people's minds at how high we're going to take combat sports.
Well, I'm not going to sit here and ask about, you know, specific names one after the other, but I do have to ask, like a name like Triple G, who is out there shopping for his next home. I mean, would that be a target that you would be looking at, or is that not?
Well, if you know how I run my business and what I like, yes, I want all the best boxers in the world, and I want them all to fight each other and find out who the real champ is and who's the best. That's what we're going to do.